Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of Rimworld Odyssey with the spacefaring Stars of Som. Last time we left off after wrapping up our scavenging tour of an abandoned orbital platform, but much more important than that, we also began and more or less finished another grand overhaul of the Heezer, our gravship. Today we have our sights firmly set on Mechanitor business. A mechlink is reportedly nearby. However, before we set out to grab it, we need to take care of some finishing touches around our ship. The turret setup is up first. After all, that could save us if things get dicey. And we're also sowing out some rice in our hydroponics basins, even if we keep the sun lamp off for the time being. As a matter of fact, our time here on this map is running out. Not only are we still suffering from the sun-blocking effects of a giant smoke cloud, but a cold snap on top of that has killed off all plant life, so our animals are having a tough time finding food. For that reason, we break up camp, what little there is outside the ship, but we won't go far, just outside the mechanoid smoke spewer radius here. So let's assemble the crew and all of our animals, including Myth the Alpha Thrumbo that was born last episode, and then we can lift off towards a hopefully more peaceful pasture. Out here, our animals can now graze, and we can continue working on the Heezer in more comfortable temperatures. This seems to raise the mood of our young high-mate Furion, who experiences a trade inspiration, so we're eagerly awaiting the arrival of the next trade ship or caravan. We are also informed of the birth of a new Boomelope calf. Let's name it Harvey Danger, after the channel supporter of the same name. And actually, we get to name a second one too. I overlooked this one last episode. Let's name it Pyro Engineer. The name of patron supporter Pyrotechnic Engineer did unfortunately not fit entirely. And the naming spree also continues just a short while later. After reading your comments on the last episode, I think we'll take in both of our prisoners, starting with Steve here, named after Steve Zeu. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Skills-wise, Steve looks capable, particularly in combat, but unfortunately he is 76 years old and in a physical condition resembling his age, so we will probably keep him confined to the ship making artwork. Now, with the weather sunny and somewhat warm, we can also grow our hydroponic rice without the need for a sun lamp. This saves us electricity that we can use elsewhere. In our shuttle bay, we then construct 2 pod launchers. To be honest, they will probably not see much use. The shuttle is superior in pretty much all aspects, but who knows, we might need them to reinforce an outpost or a small expedition down the line. Speaking of which, I think it's time we send out a small crew to grab that mechlink now. Our most combat-capable pawns all get into their gear and board the Black Shadow. The ancient Mechanitor complex is just around the corner here. Exploring it should hopefully not reveal any nasty surprises. There might be some mechs inside, but I expect them to be dormant, so if we're careful we should be fine, otherwise we might have to retreat and try again later. The first room here then off limits, not because of mechs, but because of an unstable fuel node, so we enter through a different door, and for the first few rooms things remain uneventful. Eventually then, Alex stumbles upon a room full of sleeping robots. Let's carefully close that door again and make sure no one enters the place accidentally. That should keep things the way they are. A little further up ahead, we then find what we were looking for, the Mechanitor's cryptosleep casket with the presumably dead Mechanitor inside. Before we crack it open though and potentially wake up the mechs, let's explore the rest of the facility. I can keep this brief though. The entire upper section here did not have anything apart from derelict mechanoid machinery. The rooms at the bottom then, all inaccessible for various reasons. Fuel nodes or dormant mechs all block our path, and yet we carelessly trigger one of the explosives just a few seconds later. Thankfully, everyone gets out of the blast radius in time, and the fire remains confined to this chamber. High time to grab what we came for and get out of here, I think. Young Cat is actually the one who can recover the Mechanitor's desiccated corpse and pry the mechlink out of their brain. Not exactly a task well suited for a 12-year-old, but she will turn 13 soon and should get used to the more adult tasks. With the mechlink in hand, we then run back to the shuttle and fly back to the Heezer. No need to mess with any of the mechs here. We will most likely see more than enough of them soon anyway. No surprise then as to who will become our Mechanitor. With a crafting skill of 19, our genie Brent is by far the most qualified candidate. Upon the mechlink's activation inside Brent's brain, we are also gifted our first starter mech, a small constructoid, very handy since we don't actually have that many capable constructors in our crew. Let's name it Pennypicker, once again after the channel supporter of the same name. With the mechlink installed, we can now also finally start researching mech tech, just the basic project for now, but I'm hoping to make quick progress here. For the moment, our attention is then taken by Reno recruiting our second prisoner. We'll name her Raven after patron Raven Fanning, and she is a very good pawn, I think. Great shooter, great crafter, no health conditions. The only downside perhaps the fact that she's an abrasive psychopath, but who are we to judge? Suddenly then, we are warned that a local cougar is hunting our sparrow Judai, and, well, there is simply no way we could have stopped what comes next. Judai is killed and subsequently consumed in one swift bite. Well, of course, we cannot let that stand, so in order to protect the rest of our livestock and to also bring some meat back onto the menu, we now send out a small hunting party. There's actually 2 cougars in the area here, but before we can shoot the second, basic mech tech is already unlocked, and to proceed with the standard version we need a signal chip, only obtainable by summoning a Diabolus. Well, one way or another we'll have to do it. Let's put in a few more hours of finishing up the Heezer first though. Then, in the late afternoon, Brent can summon his first mechanoid boss, who will be accompanied by 3 militars, although those are hardly worth mentioning. And so, while we already construct the means to make our own mechs, we first need to take care of a hostile one, and it doesn't take long until it arrives, just as our pawns get back into their combat suits. Now, the plan here is rather straightforward. I have no intentions of letting the Diabolus get anywhere near our gravship, otherwise we could suffer heavy damage, so instead we meet the mechs on open ground, with our Thrombos, Terror Kittens and Felix and Hive Queen Blubber in tow. We definitely have more than enough firepower and sheer force assembled here to not worry too much about the Diabolus. That is, as long as we can avoid its Hellsphere cannon, a fantastic tool if you have it on your side, as our Rimworld Anomaly series showcased numerous times, but not so great if you get hit with it yourself. Thankfully, we're able to dodge the blast, and our animals soon resume ganging up on the mech, and with a grand total of 8 pawns providing firing support, it doesn't take long until the fight is won. And there we go, we have obtained our first signal chip. Time to bring it back on board and for Brent to analyze it to unlock standard mech tech. The project is then of course started immediately. Our small mech lab is also slowly coming along. We have a gestator, a charging station and a subcore encoder already up and running, and will likely expand that setup very soon. On the next morning then we go hunting, even though one of the animals actually turns things around on us and strikes first, resulting in minor injuries for Deborah and Zero. Back on board, meanwhile, we construct a second fabrication bench. At this stage in the game, I think there is no way around it, since most of the high-end gadgets are all made at this workstation, and with one pretty much always occupied by someone making advanced components or graphite panels, there is little room for lengthier crafting projects like weapons or armor. Our first rice harvest is then also ready to be brought in, and with that, our need for wild meat is reduced for the next few days. Brent is also already making his first basic subcore, and a short while later standard mech tech is unlocked. This now gives us access to new and better mechanoids and gear for Brent, but we're still not really where we need to be. In order to unlock high mech tech, however, we need a power-focused chip, and in order to obtain one, we now need to summon a War Queen. Since she would arrive with a slightly tougher crowd, however, we'll wait a little while until we make that move. Instead, we first gestate a small clean sweeper mech to help keep the gravship nice and tidy. Then a trade ship passes by, but after looking at their inventory, I did not feel like wasting Furian's inspiration on them, so we're selling off some old furs and leathers with Reno instead, earning just over 1000 silver. From a set of cargo pods, we can also recover 150 units of ward, useful for beer making, but in our case more likely to be sold. While we have a break in our research, we can also quickly squeeze in carpet making, just to be able to boost the comfort of our otherwise rather sterile gravship, although for the moment a psychic soothe already provides all the comfort our pawns could ask for, at least the male ones. Early on the next morning then, the Royal Tribute Collector passes by, normally an event I would just ignore if it weren't for the fact that Brian's mother is part of this caravan. So we learn a little bit more about the origins of our crew's founding father. Sadly though, apart from attacking the group, there will be no way to interact with her. So instead we keep our sights set on making mech progress. We construct not only a mech band antenna needed to call in the War Queen, but Constructoid Pennypicker also puts up a long-range mineral scanner in our storage room. I think we're going to have a much easier time acquiring plasteel and other rare materials with this, and we're going to need them for the late game. The next few hours remained fairly uneventful, but in the afternoon our clean sweeper mech is done, and we can welcome Dr. Tom to the crew, who will now zoom around and clean up everybody's mess. Carpet making is unlocked just a few moments later, so we can shut down our research lab for now and let another night pass us by that is mostly spent crafting and refueling. On the next morning, we put up a wind turbine just to pump our batteries back up to full capacity as quickly as possible. We soon have a trip to make where some spare power could come in handy. Our hunters are also sent out to bring in a bit more meat, including a sizable mecha sloth, just in time before a heat wave strikes, probably a good sign that it's slowly time to move on. The arrival of a group of Thrumbos, however, makes us stay just a little while longer. There is of course no way we're leaving this place without hunting them down. And yes, I would also much rather tame them, but without using another sentience catalyst, that will simply be an impossible task. In the end, after some action-packed Thrumbo-on-Thrumbo combat, we can butcher all four of them for valuable meat, Thrumbo fur and horns, all while our colonists suffer no damage at all. After a night spent chopping meat, we also chop rice on the following morning. A little early, but for the next leg of our journey, we will shut off our entire hydroponics farm, so the plants would soon die off anyway. All of this is done to conserve power, because we are once again going to space. In the last episode, we picked up a quest to hunt down a fugitive who was hunkered down on an orbital space station, so let's pay them a visit and perhaps bring a small surprise. Now, upon our arrival, we immediately lock our doors, and then it's time to call in the War Queen. The plan here is simple. Unless the Mechs land right in front of our ship, chances are they'll get tangled up with the pirates, and one of the two factions is going to do the work for us, leaving us to pick up the pieces. That is the theory, at least, and it all seems to work out beautifully in the beginning here, with the pirates starting an unprompted early assault. only for the mechs to drop in seconds later. Unfortunately, they do so right on our doorstep, and this is where things could now get a little bit hairy. Initially, it all looks good. The pikemen are rushing straight in to meet the pirates. However, as soon as they make contact, the scythers switch into aggro mode and go directly for our turrets. This is definitely one of the biggest flaws in our ship design at the moment. These turrets are way too close together and could easily set off a chain explosion, so we are left with no other choice but to turn them on and have our crew run out to prevent that from happening. In the meantime, the War Queen has also sent out the first batch of her little urchin minions, not terribly threatening, but enough to cause a few minor injuries here and there, and over time those will of course add up. Eventually then, the pirates have taken care of the pikemen, and they are now focusing on the War Queen herself. This is the point where we hang back a bit and hold our fire for a moment, just so we don't whittle down the mech too quickly and end up with the entire pirate force overwhelming us. The more time we can buy here, the higher the chances of a few more pirates falling to the War Queen, and whoever makes the mistake of ignoring the mech is met with a barrage of bullets or blaster fire. Ultimately though, and I think this was to be expected, the War Queen stands no chance. The pirates are just too numerous, and even though they have suffered heavy casualties, there are still a good number left, and out here in space they have nowhere to flee, so they will fight to the last living body. In terms of firepower, we seem to be much stronger, but even the comparatively weak vac suits that most of these guys are wearing can stand a hit or two, so we focus our fire and hope that our turrets can do enough damage as well. Those turrets are having some trouble with the enemy's EMP launchers though. It's rare that you see those on enemies, but eventually a stray bullet causes a small catastrophe. One of the turrets explodes, causing the aforementioned chain reaction, and just like that we have lost not only Pennypicker, one half of our defenses and a solar panel, but we also have a hole in our ship. This is of course a major threat to the survival of our entire crew, so we send everyone to gather in the center of the ship where the oxygen pumps are and close all doors behind them. The fight should not take that much longer, but this is not a situation we can last in for any amount of time. Luckily, it seems like our fighters are well aware of the urgency and finally eliminate their quest target. The reward, a second gravship shield generator, is then actually delivered to that other orbital platform we secured last episode, and which you guys were very right to point out as a fairly dangerous place to build on, as any mechanoid drop pod raid will rip a hole in the station roof, causing an immediate loss of oxygen. And well, I think once is enough for our pawns, at least for the moment. Thankfully, we do manage to take out the last enemy swiftly here, but this was a lot more chaotic than I had hoped for. We've got plenty of injured, Brent actually went down, but with genies that happens frequently, and even though Kyler quickly patches up our hull, this was a very close call that I do not think we need to repeat anytime soon. So, good thing the game immediately takes our attention in an entirely different direction. Kat has just turned 13, she dreams of hunting buffalo and becoming very wealthy, so passions in shooting and animals alongside intellectual feel fitting. Meanwhile, for traits I skip them all. Wimp, delicate, depressive, creepy breathing or recluse, I think she's better off without any of them. In our hospital, meanwhile, good thing we increased its capacity by the way, our injured are being treated. Thankfully no one suffered any serious long-lasting wounds, and while some of our pawns will be out of action for a while, I expect a full recovery from everyone. And even though we still have some cleaning up to do, the situation has now stabilized. Zero is hiding in her room for a bit, but that's understandable. Alex meanwhile rebuilds the solar panel, and with that I think we should be able to stay here for at least a little while, until the Heezer can lift off again, and of course until we have looted the pirate's space station, which may house a few items of interest. All that and more then in the next episode. For today, let's make the cuts with some fan art from Dumpster Girl, a collection of drawings of our pawns and animals, Nelgraph, Alex, the Thrumbos, Felix and Terra kittens, and a picture of early days Brian, back when his Colossus Toad was still alive. Thank you so much for this wonderful artwork, and if you have anything you want to send in too, the best way to do so is via email to pete@petecomplete.com. And with that, let's make the cuts. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then feel free to subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or Patreon supporter. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.